The legislation at the provincial level, certainly in Ontario, is different from the federal legislation, and an organization that engages at both levels may have obligations under both sets of legislation, and they're not the same necessarily. Organizations have to be mindful of who they communicate with and whether it's at both levels. First off, 3 categories of lobbyists. The first is consultant lobbyists, and so these are the folks that are paid to communicate with public officials on behalf of organizations. They're required to register if they engage in lobbying activity, and there's no threshold in the sense as soon as they communicate on behalf of another organization and that communication is considered lobbying, they're required to register. The second group doesn't apply, I don't think, but that would be the in-house corporate lobbyists. And this is for for-profit corporations. If they have in-house folks, employees that engage in lobbying, then there are requirements for them to register. Finally, there's in-house organization lobbyists, and that's organizations that are not-for-profits, whether it's a registered charity or a non-profit, that have in-house people who engage in lobbying, and that's paid staff. So when you're dealing with a not-for-profit organization and the communication is done by volunteers, there may not be a registration obligation. As soon as the communication is done by paid staff, then there might be an obligation to register if the amount of lobbying meets a certain threshold. Generally, the threshold under both legislation, it's referred to as the 20% rule. So as soon as the extent of the lobbying in a 3-month period reaches the 20% threshold, so it either one person spends 20% of their time on lobbying, or a combination of people in the organization spends the equivalent of 20% of one person's time, then there's likely an obligation to register. It's the organization that registers. Usually the organization is registering under the name of the most senior person who engages in that communication. Oftentimes it's the executive director or the CEO, because they're the person who ultimately will meet with the public official, so that's the person is named. Some organizations don't do that because they really do have a person whose job entirely is to do that. But the way that the legislation works is they prefer it to be the senior person, so oftentimes it's the executive director or the CEO.